This is the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, Episode 9. Are you looking for love but can't seem to find it? Now you can with Amoreadine. Amoreadine is the pill that provides you with all the sensations of being in love without the hassle of interacting with another human being. No more deciding what to do, where to eat, or petty disagreements. Now you can have all the joy and pleasure of being in love all by yourself. Amoreadine. Just one dose of hydrodeoxysucrose will have you giggling and wandering in a daze all day long. Amoreadine is not for everyone. People in stable, healthy relationships should not take Amoreadine. In certain cases, people taking Amoreadine have developed an inability to think clearly. You should not drink, drive, walk, or talk while taking Amoreadine. In rare cases, people have stopped breathing or developed sensations of being swept off their feet. You should not stop taking Amoreadine suddenly, as it can lead to a broken heart.
I used to be sad and lonely, but with Amoreadine, I'm happy and all by myself, with no sexual side effects.
Are you ready to be in love and by yourself at the same time? Ask your doctor for Amoreadine. Hello and welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey, it's John. Welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I do appreciate it. Before I get into today's guest and telling you who that is, I just have this rambling thought that popped into my head. This experience that I had today. I worked out with my trainer this morning, and when I do that, I bring my work clothes with me to the station, and there's a shower here and a bathroom where I can, get ready for the day and shave and all that kind of stuff and get ready and come into the studio and start working. And have you ever had, this is going to be so weird, but have you ever had a towel that when you go to dry yourself off, you still feel wet? Like there's no absorbing quality to the towel at all. It almost feels like you're just kind of pushing the water around on your skin. It's a humid day here in Boston, and it's early September, but we still get 90-degree plus weather here in Boston. It could happen anytime in the month of September. So it's a humid day, and so I worked out hard. I was sweating. I took a shower, and then I got this towel, and my wife Ann doesn't understand this, but I like scratchy towels. I don't like the soft, cushy kind of towel. I like to feel like I'm getting dry. And this towel, I think it's a brand new one. I start to dry myself off, and I'm like, it's just kind of moving the water around. My arms are still wet. My legs, my back. I'm just standing there going, I hate that feeling. I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know why, but, just... I'm a little touched in the head. I'm a bit of a whack job. I'm very serious in my conversations with my guests. But, spend any time with me, and you get to understand that I'm just as quirky as the next guy is, or gal. You have to be a little touched to do what we do, and I am. So, moving on. Oh, the other thing that I want to point out to you, and this may be an interesting way to bring up a new feature that I have for you to interact with the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, you can interact with me, is if you listen to this podcast online through the website, you will see this right away over on the right-hand side of the screen. If you listen to this podcast through your smartphone, then please go to voiceovermarketingpodcast.com, and on the right-hand side of the screen, this is a brand new feature that I've put up. You'll see this orange button. It runs vertically up the right-hand side of the thing, and it's got it's orange, and it says, send us a voicemail. So I put that up. It's free. You don't even have to use a phone. All you have to do is click on it, and it uses the microphone in your computer. So just shoot. If you have a comment, if you have a question that you want me to address, if you have any feedback, if you have anything that you want to share with me, click on that, and you can send me a 90-second voice message right through your computer. It'll come to me in my email, and I will try and answer as many questions and comments as I can, even put you in the show. Moving on to what we got going on here for today's episode is my guest is none other than Dave Courvoisier. And you probably know of Dave through his multiple forums on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and I think Google+. And he's also going to be the host for the VoiceOver Virtual Conference coming up in September. He's also a broadcaster out in Las Vegas for a CBS affiliate out there. We're going to be talking to him about his career, how he got started, how he's moved into voiceover, how he uses social media to market his voiceover business. And one of the comments that he made, or the question that I asked him, was if he ever unplugged from being involved in all this technology, if he ever took time away from it. And I guess that's a question that I'll ask you. When you go on vacation or you're traveling, do you take recording equipment with you? Particularly if you're traveling on business, I get it. But if you're on vacation, do you take recording equipment with you just in case you get an email saying, hey, we got some revisions, or can you record a couple of quick lines for us? Personally, I don't. But I'm curious as to what you do. And here's the twist on that. If you're on vacation and you do take recording equipment with you, how does the person, if you're traveling with someone, how does the person traveling with you react to that? Are they cool with it? Or do they like, oh, God, can you ever take a break? I personally, and I'm not making a judgment one way or another, I'm just curious. Call it a social experiment. And this may be a great way for you to use this new feature on sending me a voicemail. It's fun. It's called SpeakPipe. And it's a nifty little thing that I'm trying out on the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. So what I'm trying to do is be present to the moment. And I saw a post on Facebook, a former instructor of mine, Alex Case. He's a really, really talented guy. Very, very smart. He's a sound engineer, and he's written this great book called Sound FX. I'll put a link to it in the show notes for you. But he posted something on Facebook the other day. It was a picture of being at a concert with the person in front of him holding up a smartphone to take a video or shoot pictures of the concert. And so in doing so was blocking his view of being able to watch the band on stage. And if you've been to a show, I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it. What confounds me is that they're standing there with the smartphone up in the air, and 9 times out of 10, they're dancing. You know, they're moving along with the music. So I'm sitting there going, what's the quality of this video going to be? You know, you ever watched a video where the camera's like moving all over the place? It's like, whoa, what are you doing? Stop. Why do people do that? And it's tied in with being present. If you're, this is my opinion, if you're spending time trying to hold your camera or a smartphone or whatever in the middle of an experience to try and capture a portion of that experience, are you totally present to the experience itself? Is the phone or the technology a distraction to you fully experiencing the concert or the sunset or singing happy birthday to a loved one? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's one of those things where you go, okay, I got to capture this thing and I really want to get this right. And in the meantime, you've missed it. It's already happened. And I sometimes wonder, what's wrong with our memories? What's wrong with having it firmly implanted in our minds of that experience where your brain takes in that thing? Sure, I understand wanting to capture snapshots and little snippets. I've done it myself. At the same time, I sometimes think, oh, geez, I was so busy trying to capture that thing that I kind of missed what was happening. And what you see on the phone never really replicates the actual experience of being there live. I mean, this is a whole topic that we could get into. It's the whole thing of the myth of multitasking, really. We're really just switching back and forth between activities. I'm kind of on a rant, but it's kind of where I'm at. But like I said, that comment, that exchange that Dave and I have in the interview, and you'll hear it, it triggered a series of thoughts with me about being present and shutting off and being completely with the person that you're with. I don't think there's anything more sad for me to see a family in a restaurant sitting down at the table and nobody's talking to each other, and they're really not even eating their meals. They're just sitting there looking at their smartphone, not spending time with one another. Our lives are busy enough as it is, and for me, I think it's important to shut all that stuff off and be present to the people who are important to you. Oh, my. I'm sure I'll get some reactions on that. I get it in my own family. Anyway, just some thoughts I'd share with you. Let me know what you think. Go to voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. Either type in a comment or use the send us a voicemail. You have 90 seconds to share your thoughts with me. All right, enough of me. Let's go talk to Dave Courvoisier. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned in the intro, my guest today is none other than Dave Courvoisier. And Dave, you're the only person I've ever known to use the word perspicacious in their bio.
I don't even know what it means. It just sounds cool, doesn't it?
I think it means you sweat a lot.
Yeah, especially in Vegas, no question.
Right. So for the last 30 years, Dave has gone through the ranks of local television, and he's earned numerous Emmys in various aspects for reporting, producing, and anchoring. He's currently the anchor for the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock weekday newscasts at the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas, Nevada, KLAS. And for the last 10 years, Dave has also applied himself in the challenges of a career in voice acting. Dave, early on in that decision, chose social networks as his primary means of marketing his voiceover business, and that has led to a new career vector, as he puts it, in helping others learn the ins and outs of new media. Dave is a frequent keynote speaker and panelist at voiceover conferences and events, and undoubtedly you've seen his posts on his award-winning blog, socialmediavo.com, and also seen Dave. He's the administrator of numerous LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter groups, and Dave, I could go on with your perspicacious bio, but
lugubrious.
Yeah. But welcome to the Voiceover Marketing Podcast.
Well, it's just an honor to be here, John. You've done so many great ones before, and I just feel like I'm honored to be part of the series.
Oh, well, the honor is mine, sir. Thanks for taking the time. So before we dive in on the social media study that you've done and been very successful with, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into broadcasting and then voiceover?
It was unintended. I was actually hoping to be a fitness instructor, and then I ended up in L.A. doing various work for equipment manufacturers, visiting hospitals, trying to sell doctors' equipment, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up hearing this ad on the radio, "You too can become a radio broadcaster. Just join the KIIS Broadcasting Workshop, blah, blah, blah." And it was actually a famous broadcasting workshop of the time in the late 70s. And I joined. I got my 6 months of instruction, how to actually spin records, how to talk on the microphone, how to use the pots, and I got my first job in radio in Carlsbad, New Mexico, at a country western station, and spent a few months there. Then I graduated to a top 40 station in Grand Junction, Colorado, and from there I kind of segued into TV. My first job in TV was as the Big Money movie host in the afternoon, where you see some schmuck standing there live during the commercial break with a fishbowl full of phone numbers, and he pulls out a phone number out of the fishbowl and calls someone at home, and if they know the title of the movie, then they win a jackpot. That was my first job in TV. And then I convinced the news director that I could actually think and talk and write, and he gave me a job in the news department, so I started working weekend mornings, and one-man banding stories. And from there, it was on to a station in West Lafayette, Indiana, which is the home of Purdue. Then I went to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is where I met my wife, and we got married there. And then from there, I went to, like I said, I kind of hopped to different stations. I went to a station in Greensboro, North Carolina, and then from there to Las Vegas. And I worked at the NBC affiliate in Las Vegas for 13 years, left to go take care of my elderly parents, and that was near Cape Girardeau. So I went back to Cape Girardeau, which was not a great career move, but it was the right personal move. And then after after that had resolved itself, I was lucky enough to get accepted at the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas, which is, those two stations are the two top stations, and maybe the station where I work now is even better than the one I worked at before. I like to think that anyway.
Sure.
And we're actually celebrating our 60th anniversary at that TV station right now. We're the first station to sign on in Nevada ever. So,
oh wow, congratulations!
It's a well-established station with a great reputation, and it's really great to be there. And I've been there 10 years now, so that's the story.
Congratulations on your anniversary and the station's anniversary.
Yeah.
So I guess that coincides the 10-year mark with starting a voiceover career.
Right. I always thought I had at least one more good thing in me besides just being a TV news anchor. Not that it's a bad thing, but I could see the writing on the wall that TV was not going in the direction that I had hoped. I was there for the halcyon days, so that's great. But but as you know, radio and TV is suffering a little bit with the advent of the internet. And I always enjoyed working with my voice, and I'd always enjoyed the performance aspects of my job more than the journalistic side. So I decided to branch out into voiceover work. Like everybody else, I thought, well, how hard can that be? You just talk for a living, right?
Right.
And boy, I found out different over the years, but I've kept my nose to the grindstone, and it's just fascinating because broadcasting is a little more cutthroat. It's dog eat dog competition.
Yeah.
Whereas in voiceover, you get this supportive, encouraging atmosphere and community, and it just feels so much better.
Yeah, that's one of the things, and I've said this a number of times on the podcast, is that I like working with voiceover people because they tend to be an optimistic bunch. It's not the most run-of-the-mill job. It's something where there's a little spark inside someone that says, hey, I should be the voice that presents this product or service or narrates this topic. And then they have the guts to go after it. And most folks, they have dreams, but they don't go after them. That's why I think voiceover people are so cool.
Well, and that whole freelance paradigm takes a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah.
You've really got to be dedicated and have the passion to do it, or you're not going to make it. I mean, you really are standing alone on your own, and you just got to wear so many hats. And John, you know this. It just takes a lot of character to stick with it. So for those people who have lasted through the years, I really tip my hat because I know you've worked hard for it.
Absolutely. You said something a few minutes ago talking about your journey into voiceover. And you said, well, how hard could that be? It's just reading. I find that is the hardest thing to overcome when working with a new client. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we were talking about it, and he wanted to do X amount. And I was like, look, I can't work for that rate. And I don't mean to put this down, but I've been at it for a while, and the rate that he was offering was just like, oh, no, you don't get it. It's a lot more, because he said, I guess this is where I'm going with it. He said, how long could that take? It's only 52 minutes long worth of copy that I want. I said, yeah, that's how long the finished product is. There's all the performance and the study prior to that, and then if you're editing it as well, then there's more time on top of that. How do you overcome that conversation? Because I'm sure you have the same conversation.
I need to polish up my answer to that because it deserves a good one. And I think Terry Daniel has one of the best answers to that. I haven't got it memorized, but I should. Basically, it amounts to telling the client that the copy might be only 52 minutes long, but as you said, John, I've got years worth of equipment and training that goes into that 52 minutes. You're getting my heart and soul and everything I put into my business for the last 10 years in that 52 minutes. And it's more than just what you're getting. It's all that background, all that history, all that work, all that training, and all the equipment, which isn't a small thing.
Right.
And if you want to pay less, you will get less of a quality product. Try me at the price I'm asking. If you aren't happy, then I know you'll go somewhere else. But I think I am worth it. You've got to really stand up and say I'm worth it. And that's of course, when you set your rates, you've got to make that determination. And it's at that point that you've got to examine your self-worth and how much you put into it and say, I'm really worth this. And if you're not willing to pay that, then I'm going to have to say no. It's a very powerful word, and it actually brings people back sometimes. They'll say, oh, well, no, it's okay. I'll go ahead and pay it. So you have to be willing to say no, to stand up for it.
Yeah, you do. And Terry put that well together, I think. That's a great way to frame it, and obviously it works. So let's jump over to social media. Why did you choose to use social media as your primary means of marketing?
First of all, I'm kind of one of those people who likes to know what the next new thing is. I'm just a guy who likes trends, and I'm kind of a closet sociologist. I like to see what populations of people are doing around the world, and I love to see developments in technology and social change. And I was one of the first people in 2007 to sign up for Twitter. I just saw it as something kind of cool, and not knowing that it would have potential as marketing. But to answer your question directly, social media network marketing is free. I mean, unless you decide to buy into a higher level of subscription at, say, LinkedIn or something.
Right.
But for the most part, it's free. Now, it is a little bit less certain than, say, a postcard mailing campaign or cold calling. Even those are hit and miss. So social media tends to it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You work at it for maybe a year or two to get the level of profile that you want on the internet for your brand. And you just have to be ready to go for it for the long term.
Yeah, I think there's a book out there by, I don't know if you've read it, by Michael Hyatt called Platform. And
Have not.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting read. He's got it's michaelhyatt.com, and he does a blog and a podcast. Yeah, I like a lot of what he puts up there. But he wrote this book called Platform. He talks about blogging and social media and how it does take an investment of time, because it's not just quote unquote traditional marketing. It's developing a relationship with an audience. And it's that investment that eventually pays off over the course of time. Probably.
Well, it's like anything else. When you launch into a relationship with anybody in your city or in your circle of friends, over time they come to know you.
Right.
They come to know your humor and your take on things, and that's the way people discover you on the network too, on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. People just come to know you, and so you form a relationship, and in that relationship there's kind of a growth of trust. And when you have trust, especially with those who might be prospective clients, you have the possibility of a job, because it may not be today or tomorrow, but down the road, a month or two, they may have a need or know of someone who has a need for a voice. And because they trust you, they'll say, hey, I know this guy. His name's Dave. And let me contact him, see if he can do that for you. And it really does work. It brings you work.
When did you start to see a return on your investment? How long did it take once you started using social media to sort of start to see things percolate?
It was a couple of years,
Yeah.
and then it was slow. I think I saw a greater leap when I started blogging with Ernest, and that was in 2007 as well. And once that I started out with maybe 10 regular viewers a day, visitors, and then it got to be 30, and then it got to be 40, 70, and I guess the word got out. And this is mostly among our peers, people who are into voiceover work and production houses and agents and stuff. And now I regularly get hundreds a day, and it's really great to see that, because I've really worked hard to gain that kind of visitation and that audience.
Sure.
But when that reached a threshold, kind of a critical point, then I started getting noticeably a lot more referrals.
Interesting. Was there anything that you could go back to in terms of the types of things you were sharing in social media and the types of things that you were writing about in your blog that really started to get traction for you?
Well, I kind of have a rule of three B's, and that is to be genuine. And by that, I don't mean be genuinely sarcastic. I mean being genuinely nice and approachable and unambiguous. My second B is to be consistent. So be consistent not only across all the platforms and all the networks with your profile, but also be consistent with your brand across all those networks. And the third is to just be helpful, to pay it forward, to offer links, to offer advice when you can, to offer to continue the conversation, to take it in a new direction. So those three B's have always worked for me. And I stay away from the flame wars. You just can't win them,
Yeah.
No religion, no politics, no Mac versus PC. You just can't win them. And not only that, but certain humor does not translate well in the written word. I don't care how many emoticons you use. So you've got to be unambiguous. And that's what I meant when I say just be straightforward. You can have humor, but some sarcastic or tongue-in-cheek humor just doesn't translate, and people don't get it or they mistake it.
Yeah, I think there's technology is wonderful in terms of how you can use text, email, and all of that. But as you said, the emoticons, they just don't cut it when it comes to hearing tone and inflection. You know, we're voice people. We communicate with voice. And it's kind of ironic because you mentioned something about flame wars. And one thing that I am noticing, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth on some things that are kind of interesting. It's just like, whoa, I'm not even going anywhere near that.
Yeah, and you know, actually, some of them have been have a very nice tenor, and they're being even keeled about it, and that's good. That's actually constructive. And some of those debates, even though they happen over and over and over again on the forums, they have to be voiced out. They have to be played out because people have frustrations about certain things, and it's a good place to take out that frustration as long as you keep it as an even keel.
What are some tips that you might be able to give someone who wants to start using social media a little bit more in their marketing for their voiceover business or their production business?
Well, it's an easy one to look over, but to overlook, I should say, is fill out your profiles as far and as full and as beefy as you can, especially on LinkedIn, because it really matters with the keywords you choose on LinkedIn. Fill out that profile. I'm a big apostle of using a picture. I mean, I don't care how ugly your mug is. You can get a decent picture made of your face somewhere, and people just have this natural curiosity about who you are and what you look like. I know there's a lot of debate about this in VO circles, but I'm a big apostle of keeping a face up there instead of your dog. I mean, it's got to be personal. So, and if you just don't want to use a picture of your face, then put your logo up there. It's got to be consistently the same logo across all the networks. So fill out your profile completely and as much as you feel comfortable sharing the information that they ask for. I mean, I don't put my home address, for instance, but I do put my phone number down. People go, "You use your phone number?" I go, "Yeah, I use my phone number because I want people to call me with jobs." I also put my full email address, and I've never really felt burned by that. I mean, I've gotten a few errant emails, but overall, it's been good. I've never had a problem with that.
Sure.
So fill out the profile, and then be present. You know, take different times of the day. Don't go the same time every day. Visit in the morning sometimes, or visit in the evening or in the afternoons. Try to get a full sample of what's out there at different day times, because you will see kind of a different drive or a tenor to the conversation at different times of the day and different days.
Oh, yeah?
Weekends are a lot more laid back and fun. By Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of almost any week, there's an intensity that reaches that crescendo in the middle of the week that's proper for business. Mondays and Fridays, people are just getting started or getting going. So they're not the biggest days of the week. You know, you have to be sensitive to those days and day parts. Yeah. And then the consistency. Be the same person all the time. You know, be consistent in your approach. You know, be giving, share links, add to the conversation. Like I said, I think that's really important that you present the same person across all the platforms and that you're consistent from day to day.
What do you mean when you say be the same person across the forums? You've used that term a number of times, and I think I understand what you mean, but could you clarify that?
It goes along with creating those relationships and letting people know who you are. If you show up one day as an angry old man and the next day as a teenager in your comments, then people are like, "Who is it? Well, I don't get this." Yeah. But if you come across as the same pleasant, unambiguous, contributory person every day with your unique edge, I mean, I'm not saying we should all be, cardboard, right? But I think if you present the same person every day, and that person is generally happy or upbeat or unambiguous, then you've presented who you really are, and that's the idea, is to be genuine. And then people kind of do get to know you, and they can play off of that, and they can expect that, and that's comforting, and it's really part of social intercourse in real life, is that you be the same person, that you are that person.
No surprises.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too. Yeah, I mean, that's me, and maybe I shouldn't impose that on others. Yeah. Other people are a little more erratic, and I don't mean to say that's wrong, but I just really think that it needs to be consistent. You just got to let them know who you are and stay that way, at least for the first couple of years, so they get to know you.
Yeah, well, you know what? That really makes a good point, because every once in a while stuff happens, and if you don't have the long-term relationship with folks out there, when you get to know somebody, they give you a pass on a couple of things, the benefit of the doubt. Okay, they're having a bad day or whatever. But I guess I see what you mean by the consistency. I noticed that you are one of the things that I've observed about you and what you've been doing in social media is that you're an avid list builder. Why do you do that? It's almost a rhetorical question on my part, but
are you too?
Yeah, I'm all about building a list. I mean, it's just lists are resource.
It's I think of it as a personality aberration. Actually, I tend towards being OCD and obsessive compulsive disorder, and I'm honest about it. My wife knows that about me, and there are goods and bads to that. One of the good aspects of it is that I feel fulfilled, and I feel like I get things off my plate and not so undetermined or unfulfilled if I make the list. So if I put the words on a paper or on this Excel spreadsheet or something, then I feel like, well, I've done something with that thought, and I've actually added it to others, and it builds a kind of an aspect or a paradigm of things that need to be done or things that can be counted on, or here's a list of leads, or lists can take any form, but they represent completion to me in a sense, and then I can check them off, and when I check them off, I also feel a completion or a closure for that particular line item.
Mm-hmm. I was also talking about how you invite people to join a list. I see things on Twitter about your Google Plus group and all that kind of stuff. Could you talk a little bit about that and what's your project and all that?
Well, I'm a big believer in community and building communities that matter and that help, that builds relationships. That's why I'm in World Voices, which is an industry trade group that I've started with a number of other of my friends. Mm-hmm. That's why I build communities on Google Plus, and I've built Twitter lists. And one of the aspects of my personality, I just believe in community and how it helps the industry in general. And it's fulfilling to me. It does something. It fulfills me in some way. And Stephen Lowell, who was the former marketing director for Voice 123, told me once, he goes, "Man, you'd make a great community director." And I'm like, I didn't realize I was that. And he goes, "Oh, yeah. You've got all those tools." And it's just something that I enjoy. I guess that's the bottom line.
You mentioned World Voices organization. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know the genesis of that has come from, I guess, a not pleasant experience in other attempts at something like this. Could you talk about, not necessarily all the stuff, but talk about World Voices organization?
Certainly.
And the goal and how that's coming along?
We have really felt our way through the challenge of creating a community of voice people who feel that it's important to have an industry trade group to speak on their behalf for the profession. This is a natural outgrowth of almost any profession that reaches a certain threshold. Mm-hmm. Is that you want to have a voice in the greater world of business, and so a number of us have been working hard on this for the last year to organize it and to bring it some publicity and to come up with bylaws and rules and rules of conduct and just to give it structure. And it can be frustrating sometimes. We've stumbled and we've made mistakes, and overall we've gotten some really great support from people who just get it, who understand that it's a natural progression for a profession of our seniority or our maturation to have an industry trade group that represents the concerns of voiceover. Now, it's not a union. Yeah. It's not necessarily a guild. We're not trying to certify or pass judgment on anyone. We're just saying, look, we represent the industry or the business of voiceover, and eventually it's going to really have some teeth to it.
Yeah, I come from a trade association background, actually. Before I got into broadcast and in a past life, I used to be a lobbyist for the Massachusetts Association of Realtors.
Really?
Yeah. It's a long story.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
But so you get it. You understand that there comes a point where this is just a natural outcome.
Well, the National Association of Realtors, and I was the state version of when they were all members of the National Association of Realtors. They were the largest trade association in the world. They had almost 750,000 members between the U.S. and Canada. And I think one of the biggest benefits that the Realtor Association gives its members is its code of ethics, its code of conduct. And that's because if there was a dispute either between fellow members or if there was a dispute between members and a client, either a buyer or a seller, there was this code of ethics that could be referred back to and to determine whether or not they fulfilled and lived up to it. And so
that was one of the first things we did. I know you know Robert Selampalia, who's a voiceover talent, an on-air talent, actually a theatrical person, and a full-time lawyer. And he pretty much single-handedly wrote our codes of conduct for coaches, for producers, and for voice talent, and he helped us write our bylaws. So it was the first thing we did. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. Well, very cool. So where is World Voices organization now? What stage are you in? Are you accepting members?
We are accepting members. If you go to worldvo.org, so worldvo, one word, .org, that's our main site now, and we accept PayPal. You can sign up right there. It's a $25 one-time application fee and a $49 yearly subscription fee. Where we're at is we're still finishing up the organizing and the public affairs, getting our newsletter out, selling the idea. You wouldn't believe how many people don't get what am I going to get out of this is what we hear a lot. What do I get for being a member? Do I get a badge? Do I get a some kind of something I can put on the wall? And we're all like, well, that will come. Yeah. I tell you, we've patterned ourselves after the National Speaker Association, which is about 10 or 15 years old, and they've got a great website and they've got a lot of order and cohesion to their organization now, and we're really kind of patterned ourselves after that. It's a closely aligned vector, and so we're really at the point where we're convincing people of the need for it. We're garnering members. We've got about 150 right now. We need to get more members, and we need to get understanding about what the group does and what it can do for you.
What do you think? Maybe you could help clarify. What are the long-term goals for the organization? Are they going to get involved in, like I said, I was a lobbyist. Are you going to get involved in monitoring legislation and regulations and things of that nature? Or are you're going to look to aggregate benefits for members in terms of, like, I don't know, car insurance? I'm just making stuff up.
Well, we have already looked at insurance. We're talking to the folks at MCA-I. If you're familiar with that group, that's also an industry trade group for production professionals.
Oh, okay.
That's MCA-I is well known to a lot of people. Some voiceover people are in MCA-I already, but we're talking to them about how they arrange their insurance. But I think mostly we want to build liaisons. We want to build relationships with SAG-AFTRA, with other.
I get you.
We want to be known to most production houses and booking agents and talent agents, because we'd like for our roster to be considered by them first as professionals.
Right.
So eventually our trail will take us to the front door of all these people who do hires.
Right.
So we can say to them, look, we're the industry trade group. All of our members are professionals. Would you like to consider us first for your jobs?
Yeah, now that makes sense. And of course, getting that message and the identity, the brand and the association with premier talent, that takes money. You got to spend money to position it. So that makes sense. So,
and we also want to create relationships with vendors and have some perks for our members. And we really do want to achieve the world portion of our name. We already have people from England and Spain and France and Turkey and Japan and Australia. So we're really trying to bring in a global community.
That's amazing that you've reached out all over like that. But in this world, in this high-tech world that we live in now, that's totally possible.
Yep.
Well, I have to be mindful of the clock. We've had a wide-ranging conversation, but I've really enjoyed it.
I didn't even notice the time had gone by so quickly.
Yeah. Well, Dave, this has been wonderful. Are there any other, let's just jump back real quick on the social media thing. Are there any other key tips and strategies that you may want to share?
I just think that you have to try the networks that work best for you and your personality and your style and your schedule. Not all of them work. Pinterest, for instance, really drives some people nuts, and it may not be the best network for voiceover people because it's a very visual medium.
Yeah.
So you may want to consider, SoundCloud and Audio Boo. These are online resources that are actually turning into social networks. So you might want to consider hanging around those. Facebook works for almost everybody. Twitter confounds a lot of people, so you may want to take that with a grain of salt. But I'm a big apostle of LinkedIn. I think it's the more serious of the social media siblings, and you can get a lot more done with searching and finding information about your prospects there.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've spent a fair amount of time on Facebook. Twitter, I kind of do a little bit with. I've never been to Pinterest. I'll just admit that. And LinkedIn, I'm on there. Actually, I had an interesting thing happen to me. I started getting emails congratulating me. And I was, what is this?
What?
And I guess LinkedIn will email your contacts to send congratulations to John. And so I had just finished 19 years with CBS, and I didn't even know it. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I started getting emails from folks, and I said, oh, that's pretty cool. So, that was kind of neat. So it's amazing what LinkedIn will actually do for you. In terms of filling, you mentioned filling out your bio and putting all the information out there. You can really leverage the technology that way.
You can overdo it too, to the point where people think you're spamming them, and you can be overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you do get in. So you've got to consider the controls and the protocols that each of those networks offer you to kind of stem the tide of too much stuff. I mean, you can get overwhelmed by it.
Oh yeah, totally. What do you do to prevent that? How do you filter it out? I guess that's a good question. How do you manage your time with social media with everything else that you've got going on?
See, I work on a laptop and I unplug it, and when the battery runs out, I'm done.
Cool.
That's actually one of the tools I use sometimes, but I'm lucky enough that I get to sit in front of a computer most of my workday at the TV station as well. And don't tell anybody at the TV station, but once in a while I actually do some stuff on social media there because, actually they're encouraging us to do that in the newsroom as well.
Right.
So I'm lucky that I can spend a good bit of my waking hours on the internet. Not everybody can. So,
You mentioned you let the battery run out. Do you ever actually totally unplug for a period of time?
I think everybody has to. I mean, I really do. If, for instance, over July 4th, I took 4 days. I took a driving vacation to a place in Tahoe, and it was just, it was cathartic. And you've just got to find that time. Maybe it's only a few hours, or maybe it's a weekend, but you've got to, I think you got to unplug. And you got to say, look, I'm not going to be available. If I miss a job, so be it. I need it for my mental health.
I agree with you completely. And I really do. I think it's important to hear. Dave, this has been a lot of fun. If people want to learn more about you and your different forums and your blog, and maybe even World Voices, you mentioned that, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, I use the first 6 letters of my last name as my moniker because it ends in VO. So COURVO at COURVO.com is my email. My blog, you mentioned earlier, is Social Media VO. Actually, that's a website that I haven't done a lot of attention to lately. My blog is Corvo.biz, and my commercial demo website is Corvo.com. I also keep a audiobook website separate, and that's Corvo.net. So I try to really leverage that Corvo branding across everything.
That makes sense. And I have to compliment you. I think I've sent you a message on it, but I saw your video on how you turned Brandy into your brand.
Well, it was just a little concept I had, and I was able to work it into a video,
No, it's very clever. I love it.
Thank you.
It's great stuff. So, this has been fantastic.
Same here, John. Thank you.
All right. Be well.
You too, sir.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Voice Over Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching with me and mastermind group opportunities where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.